You might never get another chance to catch this. In case you're wondering who's the realest. The name unforgettable.
The Dream 3 podcast, episode number 43. It's Overreaction Monday in the NFL after week one. We got a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. We're back, episode number 43. We've taken a couple weeks off, but you know what? It's NFL time. NFL season week one is finishing up right now. The Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks are playing on Monday Night Football. We got to experience football all day Sunday, and it is time for Overreaction Monday. How bad our team sucked. Who's going to be terrible this year? It's our time to talk about that right now and how that's going to affect card markets right now and for the future. We'll start right off the top. Neil, your Rams couldn't get the job done. What happened?
I said this on my Instagram. The Bills look like a team that has been training for the season since February, and the Rams have looked like a team that they've been celebrating since February. And I think that's pretty much sums it up. Yeah. There's got 17 weeks left to hopefully turn it around. It also helps that, the entire NFC West didn't win today. Minus the Seahawks who are playing now, or didn't win this weekend, so that helps us.
Yeah, it seemed like if you look around the league, a lot of the teams that we had picked in the early offseason or late offseason, really struggled. The Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow didn't seem like, Joe Franchise or Joe Cool is what we named him out to be, 4 turnovers. The Colts definitely did not show up.
No.
It was a very weird start to the season. The 49ers did not look great at all. They ended up losing to the Bears. I mean, you could go anywhere, any place, and like everyone says, it's Overreaction Monday, so the sky is falling in, and we'll talk about the, from my point of view from the Colts, at first I felt like Matt Ryan looked like just a little slightly older version of Carson Wentz. I mean, the only thing he did was get the ball out quicker, but I also didn't see the Indianapolis offensive line block for him pretty well. Paying Quentin Nelson $80 million wasn't much of a change. Alec Pierce, rookie, dropped a touchdown pass in the end zone. Ashton Dulin got a pass knocked out of his hands in the end zone. And then Frank Wright's play calling, it's death, taxes, and Frank Wright screwing it up in the red zone of just some ridiculous play calling, like the Wildcat offense. That hasn't worked since Ricky Williams was a running back in the NFL. And that only
a long time.
And that only worked for half a season. Like, you're going to tell me
that's when weed was cool. Now it's not.
You're going to tell me that Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, you send one linebacker to tackle one guy, you send the other linebacker to tackle the other guy. Like, it's not that hard to defend the Wildcat. And just, getting it down, putting it on the kicker shanks a 42-yard field goal. Like, it was just bad all over. I mean, we tied with the Texans. That's another thing I hate about the NFL right now is there are ties. Like, there should never be a tie in a football game.
Now going off of this, because I think the tie in the football game is just stupid. Do you make it a like college where you start on the 20-yard line or 25-yard line and then just – because, I mean, if you think about it, what people care about, what the NFL cares about is touchdowns and exciting plays. Mm-hmm. Putting them in the red zone is going to make it exciting. So
I agree. I mean, use the college system, especially if we're going back to what's the rule? Is the rule now that each team gets a possession?
Each team gets a possession, and on the second overtime, you have to go for 2.
Okay, so if you turn the NFL overtime rules into the college ones where you get to start at the 25, I don't see why that wouldn't be a legitimate answer to the overtime rules. You want to, like you said, The NFL wants to see touchdowns, 2-point conversions, big plays. I mean, putting the defense in that spot is a tough, with their backs on the 25 going in. But if you're the Colts and you have Frank Wright who can't call a red zone play to save his life, we'll call the same 3, play action draws to Jonathan Taylor all game. I think it would be great to see, and you're going to end up. I think there's less chance of injury because you're not having to drive up and down the field. I mean, 25 yards, I think that's better for player health. What do you think?
I mean, I don't think player health is necessarily an issue at that point. I think it's truly just a matter of you have the best players playing against each other, and nobody wants to see no points scored. Like, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago now, we had that game where the Cardinals and the Cardinals and the Seahawks, and the game ended like 3-6 or something, or 6-6 or something stupid in overtime, and it was a tie, and no one scored a touchdown. Like, nobody wants to see that. Like, people, like, at least you put them on the 25-yard line, someone's going to score some points, and it's going to help out fantasy teams, and it's going to help out people. It's going to make the game more exciting.
Well, it also, like, you look at Lovie Smith. I mean, he's got 20 seconds left, and he's punting the ball on 4th and 2 in overtime. Like, there's no sense of urgency to win in NFL overtime. Like, it's if you don't score or get, deep within field goal range, it seems like teams just, are ready to surrender and will take the tie, which that shouldn't be, part of the game.
Because a tie helps you out in the long run better than a loss does. So
it does.
It's almost like early on in the season, like, you take the tie. Like, I'm wondering why, a few of those games at the end of last year, like the Raiders and the Chargers, like, if they had just ended the game in a tie, they both would have made the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean,
so
a lot of big injuries this weekend. Dak Prescott last night fractured his thumb. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. That's going to be tough on the Cowboys, who I don't think had a great team anyway.
They were going to have to. Well, here's Micah Parsons is carrying that team.
Oh yeah,
and I think from a defensive perspective, I think they were okay. I think their problem, I mean, they only gave up 1 touchdown. I think their issue is they were on the field constantly, long drives, and the offense couldn't help them.
No.
And you'd call it the Mike McCarthy play calling, but I mean, I didn't think they were healthy to begin with. I mean, the offensive line for Dallas is missing. The Rams is missing Tyron Smith. I think on the second or third play, they lost McGovern for a little while. I mean, they're battered and bruised. It's not the same O-line that they had a few years ago. So, the split share with Zeke and Tony Pollard, it's just it's not very conducive for an exciting offense that needs to score points to be able to win games.
Agreed.
And now they're without their quarterback. So
reigning defensive player of the year, TJ Watt, tears his pec.
Is he out for the year?
Well, you tell me. You're the athletic trainer.
If it's a full tear, they'll probably put him out for the year. But if it's a partial, they'll probably rehab him.
I don't think they have an exact answer of how bad it is. I think the MRI.
Well, I would have expected the MRI to be out today. That's why I wondered.
Yeah, there was a little bit. I saw like 4 months, so I don't know if that's a partial tear.
Who was it? JJ Watt. Didn't he have a pec tear last year?
Yeah, last year, a couple years ago.
So
I don't know,
he had a pec tear last year. I think it was like the third game of the season, and he was back for
the playoffs.
The playoffs, yeah, which would have been right around 4 months, essentially.
Man, that's tough though. An injury like that?
I think you're conservative with TJ Watt, to be honest.
You have to. You've just paid him a bunch of money. You want him to be a long-term face of your franchise. Don't rush him back. I mean,
you weren't with this year. You weren't looking to be a Super Bowl champion type team. You were looking to maybe scrounge your way to get to the playoffs, and even then, that's asking a lot.
Well, it's just like, Cowboys. Is it Tyron Smith who tore his hamstring off the bone?
I can't remember what his injury was.
I'm pretty
It
sure.
might have been.
I'm pretty sure he tore the hamstring off the bone, and then Jerry said they'll get him back before the season ends. Like, dude, like hamstrings are a long recovery time, and especially somebody who's that pivotal of your team, you don't rush injuries back like that.
I can see an offensive lineman is a little bit different than a skill position player. When it comes to hamstrings, I mean, a lot of it different because you really don't have to. It's not about speed and acceleration as much as it is about just being in the way sometimes. So I can see where they can get by with that, but it doesn't sound like if it's a full hamstring tear off the bone, grade 3, being back and actually being healthy by the time the season ends, it's very, very hard to do. And like you said, hamstrings are actually one of the worst injuries as far as the rehab process because they constantly get re-aggravated.
Yes.
Which makes it very, very difficult to get back to 100%.
Oh, dude, I had a grade 2 post my playing career. I did a grade 2 while I was racing, and it took a year for me to get back.
Yeah.
It took a full year for me to recover. And I remember tearing it and hearing it, and I can still hear it in my mind. And it was 3 like big long tears, and I just fell straight down and said, I need to go to the hospital. And the next day I woke up, and from the top of my butt to the back of my knee was black.
Yeah.
It was terrible. And couldn't walk on that leg for 6 months and was just hobbling around. And it was couldn't take a full squat for almost 8 months. It was bad. Like hamstrings are no fun to deal with.
Yep. Mid bellies are a little bit better, but typically those mid belly to high hamstrings take a lot to come back from. So I think that's something that probably gets overlooked when it comes to wide receivers and running backs, how important that is in the acceleration and deceleration process, and how much you really think about what they're playing through. And I think it probably, from a global perspective, we probably need to all realize, what they're going through and how tough it is to go out there and play and do what they're doing.
Exactly.
So
let's talk about teams who looked good this weekend that we kind of, maybe weren't expecting. I thought the Philadelphia Eagles looked pretty good. I thought the Dolphins were above average. They weren't great, but they smoked the Patriots. I thought
I'm going to say the Dolphins looked exactly what I thought they would look like. And it didn't seem like they took a step up, if that makes any sense.
It seemed
they looked like a team who had an extra player to actually score touchdowns when they needed it. And they beat the Patriots, who's a team that I don't expect much from this year.
Yeah, I don't think Tua looked killer. He missed some really bad throws. One throw that they're, he put it up so only his receiver can get it. The play to Tyreek Hill where that ball should have been intercepted because he just floated it. And somehow Tyreek jumps up and snags it from the defender. Way too many 50-50 balls. But, they won. Philadelphia's pretty good. The Giants, man, that's a team that could be, if you can get Daniel Jones' head right.
Is that as much the Giants playing better, or is it as much as the Titans playing bad?
I think the Giants' new coach is exactly who they needed. They needed a guy who is, not afraid to gamble, not afraid to go into the trenches. You got a healthy Saquon Barkley who looked pretty good. As long as you can keep Daniel Jones's head on his shoulders and keep him in the game and not make, mistakes or fumble the football. The Giants, I'm not saying they could be a contender for the playoffs, but they're going to win some games and they're going to show, at least they can hang on to Saquon and Daniel Dimes' career for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, didn't the Titans lose to the Jets last year?
Yes.
and then
Yes.
they ended up getting the 1 seed. So, I mean, overreaction there. Maybe the Giants really aren't that good. Maybe they just had a one-off game.
Or
It is week 1.
are the 49ers not that good and the Bears are good? I know the field played a factor, but you think of Trey Lance as a running quarterback, Deebo Samuel, and the rest of those playmakers couldn't stop Justin Fields, and a Bears team who was going into week 1 the 32nd overall ranked team.
Yeah, I think Trey Lance just played awful, to be honest. And I didn't know I should have researched it more because I had him playing on one of my fantasy teams. I think it was in our league, playing against you. So actually, congratulations on the win. You kicked me right in the wiener.
Smoked you.
You smoked me. No, I thought Trey Lance looked terrible. I didn't think the offense. I mean, you have Debo, you have Brandon Ayuk, Elijah Mitchell gets injured in the second quarter, but Trey Lance looked like he couldn't grip a ball to save his life out there. And I get it; it was a monsoon, but just run the ball then.
So with Trey Lance struggling, if you're Jimmy G, are you on the sidelines like, yeah, it's about to be my time again? Or are you like trying to help this kid?
I don't know much about Jimmy G from that perspective, but if I'm Jimmy G and I'm kind of mad about this kid and the kid plays like crap, I'm like, I could have at least got you into the end zone.
Yeah.
You know? From that, I mean, if you think about it, Jimmy Garoppolo got them to the NFC Championship game. Just being a game manager. It's not like he played great.
Yep.
He just played good enough to win. And right now, I mean, overreaction, but Trey Lance doesn't look like he can do that. So,
okay.
I was surprised by that. I really was. I thought they were going to smoke him.
What are your thoughts on Lamar turning down the contract offer from the Ravens? 6 years, I think in total it was 200 something million, 160 something guaranteed. Turns it down because he's kind of looking for that Deshaun Watson type deal.
I don't know from an athletic perspective where they feel like the difference between making $250 million over 6 years and $275 million over 6 years is that big of a deal. You're making more money than generations of kids will ever see in their entire life. And I don't know. I feel like sometimes you have to be like real with yourself, and NFL athletes they aren't. They want the best. And I mean, I understand you got to get all your money, but I mean, you may only play 4 years, you may get banged up and bruised, but if you make $50 million, it's $49 million more than most people make ever.
Well, and it's also, NFL players are starting to now dabble with the fully guaranteed contracts, which is rare because NFL players have never had fully guaranteed contracts, and there are no guarantees in an NFL contract, unlike baseball and basketball, which, it is the number one driving sport in America. It's the most popular sport. That's why it's got the giant TV contracts and everything like that. So is this going to be more of a normal of a $200 million fully guaranteed contract?
I think if you look at like, what did Mahomes get?
Half of 10 years, like 500 mil.
500 mil. So if you take, and his isn't fully guaranteed.
No.
So if you take, like, let's say you dumb it down then and you say, okay, well, I'm not going to give you 10 years, 50 or 500 million. I'm going to give you 5 years and I'm going to give you 250 million guaranteed, or I'm going to give you 5 years, 200 million guaranteed, or 6 years, 200 million guaranteed. It's all guaranteed. Mahomes may not make that much. He could blow his leg out or just turn into a terrible person, another massage parlor, wannabe, Deshaun Watson wannabe, and then all of a sudden they cut him and he doesn't get the money.
Yep.
So I feel like if you get guaranteed money on the line, you got to take it. And I don't think I personally I don't think Lamar should be betting on himself if he has $35 million for over 6 years guaranteed.
What I don't like is
Right in
Lamar
front of
going into the season not with a contract, because if he gets hurt, then all of his chips are off the table.
Yeah, but here's the thing: what are the Ravens going to be able to go out and get that's better than Lamar Jackson?
True, but if Lamar has a Alex Smith type injury and your
Yeah,
career
yeah, you
ends
screw your
on
organization.
one snap, then what do the Ravens have to go find somebody else? I mean, Trace McSorley's not going to do it, and
No,
Tyrod
I'm
Taylor.
with you on that.
But like that's the kind of the thing you don't go into a contract year without a deal. There's been numerous players who've done that, had bet on themselves and then got hurt that contract year. And, there goes all your money.
Well, I will say to counter that, Dak Prescott went into that contract year without a contract, broke his leg, and then somehow managed to get $35 million after the year. Which doesn't
I
make
think
any
that's
sense.
Jera being Jera. But now look at him. Like, congrats, you made it to week 1. Now you're out for another 8 weeks.
Yep.
Cowboy fans are going to
with
want
you.
your
I'm with
head.
you.
So at the end of this year, I guarantee they're looking for quarterbacks in the draft.
Yeah. I mean, is it that or is it Mike McCarthy?
Well, I think Mike McCarthy's a scrub anyway, and Sean Payton's going to take over that team next year. I still don't think Sean Payton makes Dak a great quarterback.
I think the play calling and the scheming makes him a more explosive offense. But Mike McCarthy, sometimes you just question what he's drawing up. Like the two reverse passes
Oh
that
my
they
God.
were trying. I'm like,
I'm sitting here thinking, it's the third quarter. Why does CeeDee Lamb have 16 yards receiving?
He should have 100 yards in the first half.
Why is CeeDee Lamb not getting the ball more? Why is Tony Pollard not catching the ball out of the backfield? Why are you trying to hand the ball right up the middle to Zeke 30, 40 times a game? Like Dalton Schultz, man, check down. Be check down Charlie. There's no reason why, and I'm not saying this because I had a bunch of parlay bets on that game last night, even though I did. But that obviously helped me follow it a little bit more. But CeeDee Lamb not getting the ball, and now when Dak gets hurt, you got a quarterback that's definitely not getting.
Do you think
Lamb
part of that is Todd Bowles and the way he plays defense?
No, I bet if it wasn't Todd Bowles, I bet if it was, Eberflus and the Bears, you would have the exact same offensive scheme for Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, but I'm saying execution-wise. I think Tampa Bay plays in a really aggressive style, and I think Mike McCarthy just doesn't know how to handle that. I think that's the problem.
Absolutely. And I think Tampa Bay's got some killers with Devin White, Vita Vea. They got lockdown corners. They're very aggressive defense for sure.
Yeah. I assume James is referring to
the Buccaneers. James is a huge Buccaneers fan.
Yes. The Bucs defense, I would not say is better than what it was in years past because of injuries and people you've let go. But your two linebackers are some of the best linebackers, the best linebacking core in all of football. That and the 49ers, I would say are probably the two best linebacking cores in football. And that helps.
Off topic real quick, but also still in the NFL. Did you see Le'Veon Bell knock out Adrian Peterson?
I did.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, you know what? He was doing that for Adrian's kid. He was doing that for Adrian.
Hey, if more NFL guys are gonna get into the boxing, I'm here to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, just put up every scrub against each other and just watch them wail. Love it.
I mean, Lyle Alzada, who played for the Raiders and the Broncos, boxed Muhammad Ali at Mile High.
Yeah.
So
Love it.
I'm here to watch it. I'll watch Taylor Lewan versus, name another offensive tackle.
No. Taylor Lewan versus Joey Bosa. Michigan, Ohio State.
Oh, that'd be pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, it would be.
But I digress. All right, what do you want to move on to?
Okay. Well, I just want to say the Dream 3 podcast took a major L in NFL this week. You, me, except your fantasy team. Both my fantasy teams took an L.
That's
But
because
you
I
were the
drafted
only
unbiasedly.
You were the only one who managed to do something. And I will say, I think it was purely. My team just didn't play well. But hey, what's up with people taking 3 quarterbacks in the first 6 rounds, and then I'm left here picking up Matthew Stafford in the 10th?
I don't know. I got lucky with the first pick. You know, taking Jonathan Taylor is obvious because he's
We
going
need to talk because I need Brady on my team.
I'm the commissioner. We can set up a trade.
We'll
I do have Tom Brady.
We'll talk it out.
Well, I do have Tom Brady, but yeah.
Yeah, but you have Herbert. You'll be fine.
That's true.
He's gonna be the NFL MVP.
Oh yeah. Besides our fantasy league, like my FanDuel and DraftKings account took a major swing and miss this weekend.
Yeah.
Like I would be so close. Like I had a plus 550 bet on Jonathan Taylor to go over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and here we are on the 1 yard line running the Wildcat.
Yeah.
I had parlays in the Bengals game of like Jamar Chase catching a touchdown, which he did. Joey Burrow going over 250, which he did. Joe Mixon needed to score, didn't. And then something else. And I'd always be like one
every
or two
kicker or both kickers missing 2 field goals, getting blocked.
Oh, just Craig was texting me because obviously he's a huge
I know Steelers fan.
Oh, what a heart! And obviously that's going on the same time as the Colts game, and just what a day for kickers. And James texted me like right as Hot Rod's lining up. He goes, this dog about to win it for you. And that sucker went wide right. He texted me again and goes, damn. So that dude's not going to make it on the bus.
Nope.
And after today's press conference, it doesn't sound like he's going to be on the team much longer.
Yep.
So,
all right. So also this past weekend was UFC Fight Night.
Nope. 279.
279. I couldn't remember. We had how many people miss weight?
7.
7. So Caleb, you were in MMA. We'll just play a little Q&A right now.
Yeah.
You've have how many fights?
In MMA 3.
3. Okay. You have 3 fights. Uh-huh. And how many of those fights did you make weight?
All 3.
Okay. And what is the only thing other than fight in the ring that you have to do to fight in an MMA fight?
All you got to do is make weight.
Why is it so difficult for these people to try and make weight and then make a fool of themselves when they don't make weight and then they just laugh it off? Like it doesn't matter.
I don't know. And it seems, obviously we're talking about Chimaev,
who's supposed to be, I mean, if we're thinking in the world of cards, he is the biggest.
He is the Patrick Mahomes right now of MMA.
Yeah. Yes.
Like if you got some Chimaev cards, you are banking on him being the unstoppable force that everybody thinks he is, which he showed that he is so far. So the weight thing seems funky. So he fought Gilbert Burns last. Struggled to make that weight, but still made it. Now, his coach was on Ariel Helwani's show today, and then Dana also said in the post-fight press conference that Tuesday when he got to Vegas, he was 22 pounds over week up, which is not, DC said that's not terrible. Like, there are guys that come in 30 pounds over fight week. I mean, if that's what your body does, that's what your body does. I mean, he's a big dude for 170. Like he is a massive dude. So what they said was he was within 10 pounds, and you'll know this better but his body started to lock up and cramp, and he would start vomiting and having convulsions and passing out. So the UFC sent a doctor up to him to check him out, and they told him to stop cutting weight. And that was on Wednesday. Yes,
Yeah, it's
Wednesday.
called rhabdomyolysis.
So, I don't know if that's just a really bad weight cut, a freak accident.
Usually that happens where either you don't have enough water, you're not taking water, and this happens all the time with the wrestlers that we have at our school, and I'm sure that you see in MMA where people, it's not a healthy weight cut, it's just basically, how do I drain my body of every fluid inside of you? And when that happens, your body, like what happens, locks up. I mean, it basically starts to die.
And that's what, it's a weird conversation right now about weight classes, cutting weight. Cutting weight's the most dangerous thing in fighting, because you have guys like Chimaev.
Didn't it kill someone here recently in a different event, a different league?
I'm sure it has. I'm sure we could find some situations of where it's done, some pretty bad damage to people. I mean, I remember that one chick, it happened on this year's card where she was, couldn't stand up on the scale and she was crying. And you know what?
Yeah.
They let that fight go on. And she's like, doesn't have the strength to stand up. So that, I understand that's what you're contractually able to do. But as a fighter, you're also thinking, hey, if my best chances are if I weigh 220 pounds and I can force myself to 170 and I'm 3 times the size of this guy, well, is it worth me, destroying my body to get there? Dana, as much as Dana says that he cares, they don't care. They don't care.
No,
but
all he cares about is the money that he brings in. Of
course, and that's what every business owner and promoter does, and any promoter that says they don't is lying to you. But the weight classes somehow need to change by 10 pounds, because you think about it, like 85 to 205 is a big gap.
Yeah, they talked about this, or I've heard people talk about this, like Joe Rogan has, and he's been around. I mean, if you don't know Joe Rogan, he's been around MMA for what, 25 years?
Since 95. 95 was his first event there.
Okay, so 27 years. But, I mean, there's a big gap between light heavyweight and heavyweight, and from light heavyweight to then middleweight. And then you could even say from middleweight to welterweight is even a big gap, really. So I think yeah, you could add in a couple of weight classes in there, maybe to try and.
It's like you don't want to oversaturate it like boxing, where every 3 pounds is a division.
I do agree with that, though.
It's almost like every 5 or every 10, because there are some monsters that fight at small, like Luke Rockhold fights at 85. Like Luke Rockhold is 6'5" and probably walks around at 230. Rampage always said he used to walk around at 250, 240, fighting at 205.
Oh, I believe that. He was yoked out of his mind.
Like, these are just massive human beings who, and it's that wrestling mentality of coming off the scales and making this weight and depleting your body, and what dehydrating yourself to that max actually does to you. The biggest thing this weekend that I think hurt Chimaev was, well, I don't know if it hurt him, but he's made a complete heel turn where, everybody before this fight, was Chimaev, misses weight, smiles on the scales that he's, 8.5 over. And now everybody has turned on him, which I think makes him a bigger star, because now everybody's going to want to see him lose. Now everyone's going to tune in to watch him. Now, there were some haters before then that, after the Gilbert Burns fight, oh, he's not that good. He's not that good. But yeah, you want to see him fight now. I do think that Kevin Holland would have been a better fight than Diaz. I think he really would have hurt Diaz. I'm kind of glad that fight didn't happen. But there's a lot of fights out there for him that I would like to see. Him versus Paulo Costa, him versus Colby Covington. Kind of because we don't actually know what he can do. He can stand and bang like he did with Gilbert Burns. He can shoot, take somebody down and choke them out in a minute like he did Kevin Holland. He's still kind of a mystery, but we want to see that top flight competition to see what he does against a Paulo Costa.
Yeah, I don't know if Paulo would probably be the big banger that he would probably have to. I mean, it's just going to be a slugfest because I don't think that's going to go to the ground much unless obviously
Chimaev takes him there.
Takes him there. I think Colby Covington's more of a well-rounded fight for him, which I think will show how good he is and test kind of his true colors. That's not a bad one. I think that would probably be the better fight. I mean, Dana has done it before. He just sends people straight up into the championship fight. I mean, is it his time? I don't know.
I mean, he's top 3, guaranteed.
Yeah, agreed.
He's top 3 fighter. But it's also like if he's your cash cow and he wants to fight and he's healthy, keep putting him out there. You don't have a John Jones. You don't know when Connor's coming back. Like Francis says he's not going to fight on a new contract. Like you need to start building these stars, and this dude's making money right now. So, if he's still wanting to fight, doesn't matter what weight, keep putting him out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's your only cash cow right now. True.
Because you think about that card, is there any other person on that card that you could say Diaz because he's this old school, somehow, people have built this following for him. But let's be honest, Diaz has lost like his last 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think his last true win was against Connor, right?
Yeah, and it's not like cool. He stands there, he bangs, he throws the bird, he talks, this and that. Like that's great, but he's not a,
You're relying on your older generation of UFC
that are going away. That's
fans.
why him versus Tony is great. That's the 2 geriatrics fighting. Tony, he's on a massive losing streak and he wants the spotlight more than anybody else. He would have got he was going to fight Lee, right? He was going to fight the Chinese guy, and he would have got murdered by that guy. But it wasn't a pay-per-view that I'm not going to pay to watch because the only guy that I really cared about was Chimaev to see what he would do.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. Yeah. It's weird because it's like, and we talked about this a little bit. It's almost like Dana has his cash cows, but he really just kind of cuts the checks and he only just he takes as much as he can get rather than like trying to promote the UFC brand or trying to, bring on new fights, pay his fighters, get them the healthcare they need. He doesn't care. He doesn't care as much as he should.
I can see that a couple different ways. Like, he's got 750 dudes on the roster. Like, stand out and make yourself money. Like, think about it. Like, nobody knew who Sean O'Malley was. He got to the Contender Series, talked a little junk, had a couple impressive fights, then started dyeing his hair, smoking weed, doing podcasts, and then built himself up. That's what you need to do to be a star, to make some money. Get people interested in yourself. Now, Dana not paying people, like, people want to get on the 12-12 for a first contract. Yeah, that sucks. But let's be honest. Let's look at most professional boxing cards. You could take the last 10 top-ranked cards or Bob Arum cards or whoever you want to look. The first fighters for this weekend, for example, Triple G and Canelo are fighting for the 3rd time. I'm sure they're both getting $5-6 million. I'm sure the co-main event, who I have no idea who it is probably getting in the 50s and 40s. You go down to the guys who are the 1st, 2nd, 3rd fight of the night. Some of those guys are getting $100 a round. Some of those guys are making less than $2,000. And all of this gets put out to the California State Athletic Commission to show. So people who are boxing, 4, 8, 10 rounds for $2,000 at not win money, not show money, total, 12 and 12 is not bad. Plus you get a bonus. If
You got your computer, right?
Yeah.
Tell me what is the UFC's revenue per year?
Is that per event or per year?
Revenue per year.
Okay. UFC revenue per year is John Nash reported Friday. This was June 10th of this year. The UFC earned over $1 billion through the first quarter of 2022. That's April 1st, 2021 through March 31st.
So on an entire fiscal year, they're making $4 billion.
Let's see. Best financial year was last year's $5.1 billion total.
Okay. That's all I needed to hear. $5.1 billion company. You have $1 billion company, and you can't tell me that you can't pay some of your good athletes $30 million for a fight because they're going to fight once a year.
Okay, so I'll bring this to you. If there's nobody backing the fighters, what makes Dana want to pay them?
Nobody backing the fight? What are you talking about?
So think about the big three sports: NFL, NBA, MLB. What do they all have?
They got sponsorships.
No,
you don't make.
What do they have? What do they have that makes contracts as much as they are? What do all major sports have that the UFC does not?
Agents?
No, they all have agents. All the fighters have agents.
I don't know. You tell me.
Players associations, collective bargaining agreements. If the fighters can't band together, which they have tried twice, and people will not sign on to it, there's nothing that holds Dana and the UFC accountable to make them pay them what they asked.
I get that. I mean, in that aspect, then yeah, you're right. Maybe it is the fighters, but
it's the fight. If the fighters had a sack, and Tim Kennedy did a couple, because Tim Kennedy led this a few years ago, where him, Cowboy, it was like a handful of guys. They wanted to get a fighters association together. Think about it like the NFLPA or the Baseball Players Association or whatever. What is that? That is players coming together as a union to create a collective bargaining agreement to say, hey, we're partners in this company with you to make money. Let's negotiate the TV contracts, which players get a part of. Let's talk about the revenues, all the revenue streams that players get in the NFL, 49% of. So there's more money coming in. That's where those big contracts come from. So if you can't get fighters to sign their lives away because they don't trust whoever, then it's more on the fighters than anything else, because an agent can only get you so much. You're only worth what you can negotiate right then.
Do you think part of that is because of the immaturity of the sport then?
Immaturity? No, I think it's more of people afraid of being, and Tim Kennedy said this too, people being afraid of being blackballed by Dana. Like, hey, if you guys join a union, I'm not going to let you fight in this league. Like, okay, but if you get everybody,
if you get the top 10 fighters to be on this,
John Jones, Shemaev, Gilbert Burns, Conor,
you get McGregor, Ngannou.
Like, if I'm Conor McGregor, my next big move is to do that.
You'll probably get there. I mean, he's actually a pretty good businessman. So
I think cocaine's a hell of a drug, and I don't know how much.
Hey,
longer.
You know what? It worked for some other people who are
but I think if
wealthy.
If people want to talk about money, and they compare it to boxing, which we just said that the boxing undercard is worth like, you get paid sparring rounds $100 to show up. Like, people at IBG pay people $100 There's a dude at IBG who flew over to spar the guy that fought Tyson Fury last. And he got $100. They got to fly him to Spain, but he got $100 a round. But if you think about boxing and their model, so here's how the boxing model works. This is why they're going to Saudi Arabia and everything more. People pay a site fee to the promoter. So here's the site fee for, let's say, Fury's last fight. I think it was in Saudi Arabia. The site fee is $160 million. So there's your revenue. Now you take your $160 million and you split it among the two camps, which has to be negotiated through the promoter, which the A side is always the one that the promoter is linked to. And then the B side gets, it's a 80-20 split 9 times out of 10. Rarely is it even close to 60-40. And then the guys on the undercard get the scraps because they're more than likely either the up and comers, because you think about boxing, all you know is the handful of big time names. You don't know the up and comers. You don't know the guys who are, there's dudes fighting on cards who are, 1-26.
Yeah.
So
it seems like from that perspective, if you think about the big three sports and then you think about MMA and boxing and these other sports, it seems like the sport itself has not matured to understand the business side of the sport.
Yeah.
And you just need that to probably further it as it moves
you need
along.
some people to strap on a set and stand up. It's going to take some great fighter sacrificing their career to stand up and believe in something to get everybody else on board with. Because you think about, the owners don't like the NFLPA. Like, they got to give up. What's the whole point of having an agent and a collective bargaining agreement? If I'm Jerry Jones, I don't want to pay Dak Prescott any money. I want to give him as less as possible and get as much out of him. Well, that's what the job of the agent and the NFLPA are for, to negotiate what they're worth. And in MMA, it's hard because there's no kind of boundaries you can stay in. I can negotiate an MMA contract and it's not that hard because there's no rules. It's like the UFC. All right, here's your first contract. Here's your first 4 fights. You're going to get 12-12. Okay. Yeah. Well, you're kind of stuck on that because there's nowhere to negotiate with.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you make good points. It is what it is. But I think until that advances, you're going to be stuck.
I don't know if you watched the press conference today, but how about Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva?
Yeah,
Are you interested?
I am, only because Anderson's, my guy, but I just hope he doesn't make a fool of himself. And I don't think he will.
I'm interested. 8-round fight at 180 pounds or 185 pounds, I think, or 187 pounds. 187 pounds.
Okay.
And Anderson, as a boxer, looks good.
Well, we always knew that he was really good at striking, even in MMA. He's very fluid with his movement, and he always seemed to know the distance and keep his distance. Where he got caught was just, showboating a little too much, but
yeah.
But everybody falls eventually, right?
He's 3-0 or 4-0. He beat, Julio Chavez Jr., who's, former world champion. Like, Anderson can box, so it's going to be interesting. He's the taller fighter. It's Jake Paul's first time fighting a southpaw, and if you've never fought a southpaw, it's completely ass backwards. If you're a right-handed fighter and you throw a jab at a southpaw, you've basically screwed yourself. So he's going to have to learn to fight different. I'm kind of glad the Rockman fight fell through. Like, Rockman's, not like his dad. And Jake Paul needs this. He needs something to get him notice and credibility. As much as I don't like the guy, he's one of the great marketers of himself.
Yeah, part of that's because of Logan and
True.
his business. His
True, but
business
he's
guru.
also now have the reputation of everybody wants to see him lose. And
yes.
he's
the
got
villain.
the hook right now of Anderson Silva. You got the other side, you got the MMA side coming in like, oh yeah, we remember Anderson Silva. Like, he's not Tyrone Woodley. He's not, Ben Askren.
Anderson made a lot of people look stupid.
This is Anderson Silva. He's the one that looked at Forrest Griffin throwing punches like, dude, you can't touch me.
Yeah.
So I will say I am interested. I will not buy it just like any other pay-per-view. I will stream the mess out of this.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked a little bit about week 1 and what happened. Let's get into, and I brought this up just before the podcast. Let's tie this into cards.
Yep.
Based upon week 1 and what we're seeing, who are the what's hot? So who's hot? The top 3, who's hot? And then the top 3, who's not? Who's not? Who's going on the way down, falling off a cliff? Don't buy their cards, or else you're not going to get anything.
Who's hot? Who's not this year in cards? I'm not going to put this on my list, but did you see people are buying Carson Wentz cards like nobody's business right now? Like, he had
And
a
they're
couple
idiots.
sales of $3,000 and more yesterday. That it's kind of like,
did they forget that how bad he was last year?
just wait till he starts throwing some left-handed balls, and we'll go
It's
from
coming.
there.
All right, let's start with the who's hot. I think that's going to be a little bit easier, and then we'll get into who's not. I'll start.
Yeah.
Who's hot? I think this is really, really easy. Number 3, I have Mahomes. He goes out and tosses 5 touchdown passes. No Tyreek Hill on the field. It looks like he didn't miss a step, and everybody's sitting there thinking, "Well, why didn't I buy Patrick Mahomes this summer? Why didn't I do that?"
Yeah.
And now they all look stupid.
Yep.
I will say I didn't expect Patrick Mahomes personally to play as well as he did.
Mhm.
So he got my attention, and I think he's kind of, if he continues to play at this level, I mean, you're talking about potential MVP candidate. You're talking about, a guy who's going to carry his team potentially to another Super Bowl. He's been to 2 out of the last 3, and he's been to what, 3 or 4 straight NFC or AFC championship games. So, I mean, if anything, the road to the Super Bowl goes through Kansas City. Number 2, Justin Herbert. Granted, he was playing at home. He had kind of this revitalized defense playing around him. But offensively, he looked good. He looked efficient. He looked like he was playing within himself. He wasn't trying to reach. He wasn't trying to do too much. He looked like he was just playing cool, calm, and collected. Tosses 297, 287, and 3 tutties. So easy day for him at the office. They go and they handle the Raiders pretty well. I think the Chargers will be good. I mean, they looked really good. And then last one, the guy who took my Rams and bent them over a table, Josh Allen. He was the star of the summer and the offseason, and he is still the star after last week. So he is number 1. Who's hot?
I'm going to try to stay away as much as possible from your hot. I will say, here's my 3, and I'm just kind of scrolling through real quick. Guys who are hot. Number 3, and we're talking about investing, or not even investing, but cards that are probably going to make a little bit of a bump during.
I'll say 1 if you don't say this.
Okay,
I'll say 1 at the end that I like.
So basically, I'm going to have, off the top of my head, I have 3, maybe 4.
Okay.
I'm trying to think outside of quarterbacks too. So I'll say.
Oh, that's a good point.
So my honorable mention. I'll give an honorable mention. Saquon Barkley.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
Saquon,
so Saquon, like, he showed yesterday, if you've been hanging on to Saquon cards, it might be a good year to keep hanging on to him.
Yeah.
He's healthy. He showed that top end speed again. Like Saquon is a monster, and he's got not a great team, but he's got a better team around him. Would love to see it more. I kind of wish I never got rid of my Saquon cards, but if you're holding them, it might be a good idea mid-season kind of see, because after week 1, that helped you a lot. So number 3 on my list, I'm going to go Mitchell Trubisky. Trubisky, he looked not bad. I mean, he kind of proved that the Bears just straight up ruined him for many, many years and didn't get a fair shot. Obviously in Buffalo, he's not going to start in front of Josh Allen, but proved that the dude's a starting quarterback against a team that just went to the Super Bowl. Let's be honest, the Bengals aren't a great defense, but Mitchell Trubisky, like, we had high hopes coming out of college for him. Number 2, who do I want to go with? Number 2, let's go Lamar Jackson. Betting on yourself, throwing 4 tutters, like slinging the ball around the field. I know he played the Jets. Like, Jets are going to be the punching bag of the league, like normal. But, Lamar Jackson, until you stop him, he's not Patrick Mahomes, but, he's the next best option if you like that running quarterback, sidearm slinger.
He's as talented of a runner at quarterback as Patrick Mahomes is as a passer at quarterback.
Yeah. And number 1 for me, like, you can't. There's no. It's got to be Patrick, because he has the highest ceiling, he has the highest card value, and if you've been holding at all, like, all you're doing is making money with Patrick Mahomes. There's no wrong that you can, like, there will be dips, but he plays like he did this past weekend against Arizona. Just hang on to him, man. You can hang on to him for the next 10 years and be $1 million cards.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong with that. I think he proved to people that it didn't matter. It didn't matter who was.
It doesn't matter. Even though you got, Justin Herbert is a good quarterback. Hasn't shown greatness yet. He's good, and he's got that Prism, the Black 101 that went for $1 million.
The Shield went for $1.8 million.
Okay, the Shield went for $1.8 million,
which is ridiculous.
Exactly, because he hasn't done anything yet.
Yes, he hasn't even made the playoffs.
We're playing on hype, where at least Patrick Mahomes has a Super Bowl ring.
Yep.
So, if you're holding Patrick Mahomes, keep holding.
Yep.
So that's my
okay. I like that. I will say 2 honorable mentions, and this comes out of 2 people from the same game. Number 1, AJ Brown looked like a god out there. It looked like he hasn't had a quarterback who could throw to him, and with playing in that Philadelphia offense, he could be a fantasy stud. He really could. He could be a top 5 guy. And then the other one, DeAndre Swift. He was running the crap out of the ball, catching the ball. You beat me with A.J. Brown, DeAndre Swift, and Jonathan Taylor pretty much by yourself. So
DeAndre Swift is a great player on a terrible team.
He is. Although I think the Lions are better than people think.
Well, I guarantee they're better, but I want to see them win some games.
I do too.
I just wish they had a different quarterback.
Yes. All right, let's move on to who's not. Do you want to start your list, or do you want me to do mine?
Oh, okay, I'll do my 3. They're all quarterbacks. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, we probably have 2 or 3 the same.
Okay, so number 3, Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
Like, Trevor Lawrence, you're on a bad team. You're going to stay on a bad franchise. You lost to Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz beat the Jaguars, which he couldn't do with the Colts. Take that as what you will. You might get Travis Etienne back. You spent a bunch of money on – I mean, he didn't spend a bunch of money, but the Khan family spent a bunch of money on Christian Kirk, who is not getting paid like a number 1 receiver, is not a number 1 receiver. You have subpar people in the backfield. Your defense sucks. You're going to end up in the bottom half of the AFC, or the bottom half of the division, and then be top tier or bottom tier team of the AFC anyway. Trevor Lawrence, if you can only do so much. And even what I've seen still isn't that great. He still has a couple years of anything.
What sucks is he plays in a system he plays a system in a franchise where he will not succeed.
He's got that. He's going to be, and I hate to say it, Daniel Dimes type system minus the turnovers.
Yeah, he could be a Matthew Stafford, but we'll never know until he gets out of Jacksonville.
Exactly. Number 2, Trey Lance. Oh, dude, if you had Trey Lance, you are kicking yourself because he looked like dirty brown trash water.
I have him as my number 2. He looks god awful.
Yeah, Trey Lance, god awful. You posted that thing on Instagram about the Trey Lance National Treasure Shield that was pulled. Like, oh, dude, if I have Trey Lance cards right now, I'm just hoping he doesn't turn out to be garbage. And if Jimmy G gets put back in as a starter, you better throw them Trey Lance cards away because that's all that's going to be bad.
Yep.
Number 1 for me, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, garbage. And it's not even just because of him. It's going to be because of the team around him. Sorry, you can look over. Javonte Adams ain't there no more. You're in year whatever. You're a leader. You're going to pout and do whatever on the sidelines. But, man, you got to lead this team. You got to get in these dudes' ass. But Aaron Rodgers cards are going to take a major hit. Not that they're super expensive or through the roof anyway. But if you're holding Aaron Rodgers, you're just holding for long-term legacy. This is not the year to move. It's going to be a down year if you're investing or holding an Aaron. Yeah.
My number 3 was Aaron Rodgers. And the reason why is you don't have – okay, you could give all the excuses in the world that you don't have your wide receivers and you don't even have Alan Lazard out there who is supposed to be your number 1. You don't have Devontae Adams anymore, but you specifically said in the offseason that stuff doesn't matter and you're going to go out there and you're going to still be able to play. And you showed just how here's my comparison. How many years did we see Tom Brady play with white
garbage,
undersized wide receivers from Division II and III colleges and take them to Super Bowls?
Oh, dude, you can name them.
What do you have, and what is Aaron Rodgers' excuse then? What is Aaron Rodgers' excuse?
It's like I said, man, you're the leader of the team. Make the guys work.
Yep, he needs to go back to Costa Rica and just do ayahuasca ceremonies for the rest of his life.
He needs to he should
bring Ricky Williams with you.
He should have retired last year. Like,
yep,
move on.
Agreed.
Like, you don't, do you really love the game anymore? Like, who can?
No.
There's nothing for you to accomplish.
Yep, nothing. Number 2, Lance. He played like trash.
Garbage.
I don't care if it was a monsoon or whatever. I mean, he looked like he was wearing bucket feet out there, like he'd never played in a rain game before, and which makes sense because he does play in a dome, but that's no excuse, no excuse whatsoever. And then my number 1, pretty obvious here, Dak Prescott. It's hard to do anything to boost your prices when you're sitting there naked on a beanbag eating Cheetos for 8 weeks. And that's what he's going to be doing. So,
and he can't stay healthy.
No,
cannot
stay healthy.
No,
so
I agree.
Pretty simple right
good
there.
List. Yeah, good list.
I like it. Week 1.
Week 1 finishing up right now. I think I haven't even watched a second of the Denver game. What's the score?
17-10. Seahawks are up with 3 seconds left.
Geno Smith, boys.
Geno Smith is showing why Russell Wilson was clearly
overrated.
a poor choice. So,
all right, cool.
All right,
cool.
The next week, week 2, next week.
Let's talk about, and we'll try to get White Freeze Wax on. I think we should talk about the World Cup. It's coming up, especially for us who are holding soccer cards And
What about the products? We need to talk about the products coming too.
Oh, dude,
Have you heard
I
about
like
some of those?
I like some soccer products.
How about an Mbappe patch auto?
Because he signed an exclusive deal with Panini.
Yep. But
love
they're
it.
supposed to have imminence by the time World Cup comes out.
They're what's it called, museum or something like that. They have some stuff now that I've been getting Josh into, that it's kind of like, because he's very big on rookie cards, on prospect cards, and I'm trying to get him to the patch auto game, and his collection's so deep. But we need to talk about the World Cup. It's coming up so soon. We need to talk about the players, the prospects, moving some cards. You know, if you don't know, a lot of people know, you know, the big three, big four: Mbappe, Ronaldo, Neymar, Messi, you know, Holland. There's your big five. So we're going to need to talk about the outside, who we're going to look at, the Kai Havertz, guys like that, who I'm excited. I'm actually going to pay super close attention to the World Cup this year, which is going to be awesome.
Yes.
So thanks again to our sponsors, MySlabs, buy, sell all of your slabbed cards, wax, comic books for up to only 1% fees. They got a new partnership with Slabfolio now, where you can simultaneously list your cards on MySlabs and eBay at the same time, and don't have to worry about the double sale because it'll automatically take it off. So check that out. Go to MySlabs, go to their Instagram and read more about that. Slab Savers, you know, if you got good cards, always protect your cards. Use Slab Savers, protectyourslabs.com. Use code DREAM3. It's going to get you 10% off your product. Graded Card Solutions, go to gradedship.com. Protect your cards when you ship them. Obviously, you hate to get bad feedback, and you can't trust the post office, UPS, FedEx, wherever you ship your cards. Make sure they're protected, because no one likes to be shipping a $4,000 card and it comes out cracked because the UPS man dropped it and backed over it with his truck. And finally, our friends at Nation Golf, nationgolfcompany.com. If you're in the San Clemente, California area, go check out their shop. You can go in store and buy some Nation Golf gear now. Go hit up my man Adam Hawk and Ryan Engel. Great guys. If you love the game of golf, go to nationgolfco.com and get you some gear. As for me and Neil, that is it for us this week on episode 34 or 43. Sorry, dyslexia. We'll get back at it with episode 44. We'll talk about the World Cup. So until next time, see y'all later.